Me a moment with your friend. I've never been on trial for my thoughts before.
Welcome to the Only One Mic podcast called Gerard Brooklyn Dre. J-Rob is in the building and Just Me is off tonight. We are joined tonight by Miss Brittany Rumph and Miss Lindsay Swan, the founders of the Innova Girls Charter School. How you doing, ladies?
Hello.
Wow.
All right. It is good to have you both on. This came across the desk, and I figured that we would shed some light on it. So you ladies are starting the Innova Girls Academy Charter School that's located in Rochester, New York. Now, Lindsay, I had the opportunity to see, I guess it was 2 years ago, your pitch on the Innova Academy, and now we're here. We're at the point where we're discussing it. So what I want you ladies to do, if you can, please introduce yourself to our listeners and give us a little bit of background on how you got into education, what is your why for the education, and as well as we'll get into Innova in a second. So who would like to go first? Who wants to introduce themselves first?
I can start.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany Rumph, and I am one of the co-founders of Innova Girls Academy. I'm born and raised in Rochester, New York, so I'm a Rochester native. And I would say that's my reason for education. My grandma always told me when I was younger, make sure you get an education. That's one of the things that no one can ever take from you. And when I look at different outcomes of just different folks, I know that education was the vehicle that set me apart, both education and my faith and support system. And so I'll say, I won't be too long-winded, but I'll say that I've been in education for the last 14 years here in Rochester. And my ultimate life goal is to positively impact the most children and families as humanly possible. So this is just one of the ways. Education is my thing, as well as dance and cheerleading. So I'm also a cheerleading coach for one of our local, I would say nationally renowned local cheerleading teams here. And so I'll leave you with this, and then I'll stop talking because I do like to talk. Well, I remember a few years back, probably around 9 years ago, I was in the running for a founding teacher position at one of our schools here locally in Rochester. And the principal asked, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, or what are you going to say to yourself when things get hard? Because education in Rochester is hard. What are you going to say on those hard days to keep yourself going? And that was easy for me. That was really easy for me. I just thought my answer was, I'll just look out at my children and picture myself, because I sat in those very seats, and education made the difference for me. So I'll picture little Brittany Rumph in front of me. And now that we're opening an the only all-girls charter school in Monroe County, it truly will be a little Brittany Rumph, girls in my community. So that'll keep me going.
Okay.
And I'm just going to jump in here, Brittany. Don't ever feel like you're being long-winded, because we are recording. So this is what we like. We like you to explain.
Yeah, go ahead, explain.
And so I'm gonna let Lindsay, jump in, and again, don't feel like you're being long-winded. This is radio. So we gotta gotta keep the conversation moving. So Lindsay, if you want to jump in, same question.
Well, it's so wonderful to be here and to share a little bit more about Innova. I was most recently an educator in New York City, and I moved to Rochester in 2019 to start the work on Innova Girls Academy. And I'd never lived in Rochester before. I'm a transplant to this area. That being said, my grandmother grew up here, and the same way Brittany's inspiration and how she first got started in education was rooted in her grandmother. It's similar for me. My grandmother was a lifelong educator, the matriarch of my mom's side of the family, and really just an incredible, powerful woman who was a role model for me. She grew up here in Rochester and graduated from Monroe High School in the 1940s. And at that point in time, she shares a story of her my great aunt, her friend at the time before she married into the family, she said to me, oh, well, great aunt Phyllis got to go to Monroe High School. And I said, what do you mean she got to go to Monroe High School? And my grandmother said, well, she didn't live in the city. She lived in Pittsford, but she got to go to Monroe. I said, what do you mean? Why would she go? Why would she come to the city to go to Monroe if she's living in Pittsford? And my grandmother said, well, of course she'd want to go to the city schools. That was the best place to get educated. You wouldn't want to go to a farm school.
Right.
And I'm
Makes
thinking
sense.
that's only a few generations ago that's the mindset, that she was traveling into the city to go to school there because her dad worked in the city so she could get a ride in every day. And we know about the systems that are in place that have caused us to tell the exact opposite story today. But it doesn't have to be that way. And we know that there's girls in the city who have so much incredible potential. And we believe that they deserve access to a school that allows them to exercise that potential and to grow as confident leaders and as those confident problem solvers. And to go to a school that people want to come to the city for. And so when I think about my grandmother's experience here in Rochester, that's something I want to be able to replicate for the girls that are here today so that they can go on to be the matriarchs of their family, to be the teachers or to be the scientists or the engineers who they can be, and then become those leaders in the families as well. So I feel really blessed to have the opportunity to be working with Brittany and working on this school and really try to build back that legacy that my grandmother was able to begin here in Rochester.
How many years have you both been in education?
I've been in education for 14 years now.
And what grade levels?
So I have taught all the way from preschool or pre-K, like the Head Start age range, so 3 and 4 year olds, all the way up to like 11th grade earth science. Okay. I specialize in both integrating the arts and in special education.
Okay. And Lindsay? And
I've been in education for 9 years, and I'm on the other side of the spectrum than Brittany. I was teaching at the high school level. So I was teaching 9th through 12th graders, chemistry and computer science. So when you think about the STEAM focus of our school, that's really where my expertise comes into play. And one reason why Brittany and I are such strong partners is that we've taught sort of very different settings when it comes to education. And I'm so glad that she's on the team when it comes to starting with our kindergartners, our first and our second graders. Her expertise as an early educator is just incredible and important for Innova.
God bless you both.
Yeah, God bless you both.
I would think that you probably want to get in the middle somewhere. You know, I wouldn't want to be on the end of either side.
I don't know. Middle school teachers are very special people as well.
Yes.
I think those 5th, 6th, 7th grade teachers, those folks are really the true heroes when it comes to education.
And we went to high school in New York City, so we know, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's different.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different feel. Actually, different city, different era. You know,
different
so,
time.
Different. Yeah. So, like I said, God bless you both. Commend you on such a big undertaking. At what point did you feel this was the time for Innova? Like, what was it that led you to sit down and kind of craft this plan to say, all right, now's the time to put this out to the world?
I think, Lindsay, I'll start how we met, and then you can sort of jump in. So Lindsay and I both met back in, it seems like forever ago, but we got to know each other very well because we both started a fellowship with Building Excellent Schools, formerly Building Excellent Schools. Now they've shortened their name to BES, which is a nonprofit based out of Boston that finds educators and find folks who are interested and capable of starting high quality schools just around the nation. So we met in that fellowship in 2019, and we spent a lot of time together traveling the nation from anywhere from California to Memphis to back over, in our neck of the woods in New York City, in Boston, all over, studying some high quality schools, charter schools, traditional public schools, and even a private school to figure out what was working for them. And then what can we bring back to our community in Rochester to really support our community. Lindsay, you want to talk about how we landed on all girls?
Yes, absolutely. I can also think about the question about the timing and why right now, in some ways it's like why right now versus why not in 2019 or in 2020. One thing that Brittany and I have had to learn how to do over the past 3 years that we've been working on this school is actually how to like slow down and be patient and to wait for the right time.
Right.
We submitted the charter application originally in 2020, and off the bat, we were rejected by the state when it comes to getting that approval to open the charter.
Did they give you a reason why, Lindsay? Why did?
Yes. So if you remember, and how can we forget, 2020 was right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic.
Right.
So we submitted our application, and they said, we love this idea. We know that there's a need for it. We're partnering with the Girl Scouts. They were really excited about that Girl Scouts partnership, but they said, there's no way we can approve you to open your doors. Nobody knows what's happening in education right now.
Right.
And that was a very hard pill for us to swallow because it was a big rejection. We've been working for a long time to get this application together. It's a big application. You have all this community engagement. We felt like we had this momentum and it was being taken away from us. And they said, you know, at some point in time, you're going to thank us for this. We know it's hard to hear now, but you're going to thank us. Come back next year, apply again. So we did that. We applied the next year and we got the approval in 2021. And they said, okay, now you can open in August 2022. You can, 8 months from now. And so we were gearing up and we were ready to go. And we were like, now's the time. And then we realized if we rush through our startup in 8 months, we're not going to open the quality school that we want to open. We're not going to have the foundation laid that's going to allow us to ensure that students will be able to get that high quality education starting on day one. So we had to again take a pause and again choose, let's wait this extra year. So that allowed us to have a year and a half of planning time. We're opening our doors in August 2023.
Right.
And finally, it feels like all that time that we've spent has been time that's been well spent because we can now say in August that the school that we're opening is going to be the quality that we need to ensure that our girls get and deserve the education that we can offer them. But it's just been, at least for me personally, a huge learning experience in how to slow down and how to say one step at a time, let's get the building right. Let's get the curriculum right. Let's get the teaching team right before we rush into something and make a mistake and not give our girls exactly what they need when it comes to education.
Right. And I'm glad that you spoke on the experience of it all, Lindsay, because that was my next thing. So you kind of gave your experience in this whole process, and that's good. So Brittany, what was your experience like? Just, we can cut past the whole, trying to get the charter thing. How did you feel personally? What was your experience on that?
So I will begin with saying, usually people come up to me and they say, wow, like you're realizing your dream that you're opening a school, like this is amazing. And then I had to take a step back and realize, like, actually, this kind of wasn't my dream. So it wasn't my dream because I didn't know that opening a school was ever possible. So, and that's how I think that's part of what fuels me. I didn't know what was possible. And I know that there's so many other girls in my community who also don't know what's possible. And that's because we don't see ourselves in those positions of power. We don't usually have access to that knowledge of how to. So it wasn't my dream. But even today, I talked to a bunch of youth at an MLK event and I told them to find out what like they're passionate about. I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about dance. I'm passionate about the arts. I'm passionate about uplifting the children in my community, wherever that lands. And so I talked to them and I told them, find out what you're passionate about and then find who's doing that. Align yourself with the right people. So I learned about BES. I learned that you could even start a school. Like I didn't know that you could like start a school. I learned that you could start a school, right? You could actually start a school through one of my mentors, through a text message. She said, Brittany, did you know that Building Excellence School is looking for leaders to start a school in Rochester? And I said, what are you talking about? And she's like, go look into it. So I looked into it and I was like, still kind of like, okay, I could start a school. Like, what does that look like? And then I thought, well, if they're looking at Rochester, if they're looking for folks to start a school within my community, like I want to be a part of that. And so I went out for it. And that's just the example that I want our girls to see. I want them to know that truly the world is yours. work really hard, soak up all the knowledge you can, and align yourself with the right people.
I wanted to swing this back to Lindsay, because I know you did actually, say that you learned patience through this whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that starting a school was possible? Did you see yourself doing this, or was it just something that fell on your lap as well?
I think that me going through the process of starting a school is me putting my money where my mouth is. Mm-hmm. I remember being a first-year teacher in a school and thinking, there must be a better way to do this. Mm-hmm. What we're doing right now with kids, the way that teachers are being managed, the way that teachers are talking to each other, the adult culture in the building, there must be a way to do the better way to do this. I want to start a school because I want to be able to show that this can be done differently. So that initial seed got planted in my mind in my first year of teaching. And then it just became sort of this wondering, like, how do you do that? I think you can do that, but how do you do that? And trying to figure out what that process looks like. And sort of similar to Brittany, stumbled upon BES and thought, is this real? It almost sounded too good to be true. A fellowship program that pays you to learn how to open a school. Mm-hmm. And the support that they gave us in that way was really invaluable.
Have you guys worked in charter schools before, or just all public school? Did you find any difference in working in either or?
So I can start. Yes. The answer is yes. I've worked in charter schools. So I have worked in, I would say when I was getting my master's in inclusive early childhood, my placements was in a district school or traditional public school that we all know is as a part of a district. And one of my placements was there. And at this particular school, I would say the children and families were phenomenal. What I would say is the adult culture and the adult culture was toxic. And then I took a step back, it took the judgment away, like what's really happening here. Right. And it was that teachers were under supported and they were burnt out. It wasn't that no one gets into teaching because they don't like children. Right. That just doesn't happen.
And you're not going to get rich doing it.
No, you're not going to get rich doing it. But what I did realize is they were burnt out, and I took a deep dive into like why are the teachers burnt out in some of the districts that I've had access to, or I would have done student teaching back then in multiple. I found in multiple buildings in one district it was the same thing, and it was because the teachers were under supported. But then I looked at the leadership, and I felt like they didn't have the autonomy to change anything in their building. Mm-hmm. Basically, in the district central office, kind of folks who sit in the office get to make a lot of the big calls, the curriculum, the time of day, that school starts, the end time. They make so that the school building leaders or principals really didn't make decisions. Were unable to make some really important decisions. They couldn't change their curriculum if it wasn't meeting the need. If they found it wasn't meeting the needs of the children, there wasn't a lot of flexibility. And so I knew that I wasn't going to go into a district. Though I graduated from our local district, I wasn't going to go into one. So I went and taught in some pretty different placements throughout those 14 years, including a pre-K, including two juvenile facilities, where my children took two different placements. Where one, children were convicted of a crime, and so they lived in the juvenile facilities and they walked over to school. Another one of my placements was where students had been deemed emotionally disturbed, and they lived on campus or they came to a day treatment. So I taught at school there. And then before I started to work on Innova and work on the BES fellowship, I spent 7 years in a local charter school. As I first jumped on as a founding teacher and sort of moved up the ranks to an instructional leader, which means I coach the teachers. Right.
That explains a lot. It explains a lot, because I was wondering, like, what's going on with public school? Like, what's the issue? And it just seems like it's deteriorating. And what you just said just explains a lot.
Yeah, because it is a deficiency in public schools, especially in early education, and which we all know that after certain grade levels, statistics show that, after a certain grade level, if you don't catch a kid by, I think, like third grade, ladies, or something like that, that you pretty much have a dropout on your hands. But we all see that behavior has been a big play. A lot of kids aren't really grasping the material and all. And people will say that it's more or less because of, like, we dealing with COVID babies is what they deem them now, But as educators, Do you see that there's a deficiency in the curriculum, or is it because of the behavior? Is there an approach that is just not working as of the last 2 to 3 years that we kind of see a decline in student improvement?
I'll start with, so aside from academics, I don't know if you all can see this, right? But when I think about ourselves as adults, during the pandemic, when we were on lockdown, there were times where I felt nuts, just kind of out of my mind, lacking that human interaction that's very natural for us.
Right.
Us as adults, we can regulate that and kind of find something to do. And then when it was time to get back together, some of us were able to jump right in. I find just on the drive home, we have a lot less patience and tolerance for folks as adults.
Are you out there road raging, Brittany? Is that what you're trying to? Are you confessing to right now? Okay.
No, I'm not road raging.
All right.
But I'm looking at adults and I'm like, wow, why is everyone kind of angry, a little bitter? And I'm like, because as adults, we didn't have that time. Our social skills took a hit because we weren't socializing. Now put that in, and we're adults and we have lived experience. Now, when you put that, take that same lens and think about children, they're developing their social skills there. Self-regulation and just how to talk to folks and how to interact, small problem solving, all these little finite nuances that we think of, we go straight to the academics. They can't read. They're not doing math. But I'd like to take us a step back and think about their wellness, their overall wellness, their mental health, and their social skills that were non-existent for 2 years. Right. So they're just getting back into the swing of things. They missed out. And so that's where I would start.
Lindsay, what do you feel about it? Do you think that social emotional learning should be a part of regular curriculum at this point?
Absolutely. I think just as Brittany's saying, if you think about it, if we were in, some strange version of lockdown or hybrid, not in-person work for 2 to 3 years, let's say that was 5 to 10% of our life. If you're 5 years old, that was half of your life you spent in a sort of augmented, strange reality of the world, right? And so that ability to develop your social emotional learning is just reduced, whether that means that you weren't in school or whether that means that you were not getting to go to regular programming that you normally would go to, Boys and Girls Club, the R Center, wherever else. Not having access to that has made a huge impact. Now, I think even before COVID, our schools could have used more social emotional learning. It's not saying, oh, we need this now because of COVID. I'm saying we need this now even more so than we did before because of COVID.
Right.
Now, we have to find a way to integrate it into the school day so that it becomes part of learning. It's not a standalone thing. You don't just go to advisory and have SEL once a day and then that's it. The language that your teachers use to talk about social emotional learning. And for us, that's going to be really grounded in self-regulated learning. The way that we talk about self-regulated learning in our advisory classrooms, that has to be carried through to your English classroom, to your math classroom, to your science classroom, so that you're hearing these words and you're thinking about yourself as a learner all throughout the day. So it's not just a standalone. And I do think that a lot of schools right now, be it charter or a traditional public, they're struggling because SEL is being introduced as a Band-Aid to say, now we're going to do this. This will solve everything. And from my experience in education, there is not one thing that solves everything. And so I think that we're really lucky at Innova to have an opportunity to be starting new and to say, this is not an afterthought. We're actually going to put this first and then think about how that works throughout the rest of our day, so that it can have a longer lasting effect. And it doesn't feel like a quick fix that eventually, 3-4 years from now might move out of fashion before the next big quick fix comes in.
And I know you guys are just starting off. My question is, what is your long-term goal? Your long-term goal is to create more schools, go to different states. I mean, what's the long-term goal?
Right now, the long-term goal is to open one excellent elementary school.
I got you. I'm just throwing out the room too.
But I
Yeah, that was a good one, Lindsay. Yeah, we're just going to focus on this one thing. We're going to park it right here.
I like the way you think, and expansion in the future, I think, is not a bad idea. idea, but we have to be able to demonstrate we can do this well here in our community, a community that matters very much to Brittany and I, before we start thinking about other places. I did have one person contact me from Ohio who said, we want to open this out here. Can we do it? And I was like, we don't have anything to show for what we've said so far. We have a really nice charter. We have a really nice approval, but we don't have any real evidence that what we're doing is going to work. And so let us build this foundation. Let us make sure that everything we've said is really going to live up to the Innova mission. And once we've done that, which we're confident we will, but once we've done it, then we can talk about opening new schools.
It's good that you ladies didn't just capitalize on the presentation. It's like selling an empty box and, telling us the best thing since sliced bread. You want to take time to kind of build up your whole thing.
What made you guys add the arts to the normal STEM education?
Parents told us to.
You banging them out the park today, Lindsay. Straight to the point.
Straight to the point, right.
Parents told us to.
But Brittany can definitely speak more to the arts education component too. So I won't answer that question with just one line. Brittany, do you want to?
Yeah, so community, part of the process is to really engage with the community and figure out what do parents want. Because ultimately you're opening a school to serve the children and families of the community. And what was important to them is access to the arts, which I was super excited about because that's kind of my thing a little bit, which gets pushed to the side sometimes. But I attended the public performing arts high school, middle and high school. And so during the day and I was a dance major. So during the day, I could be going from math class to ballet to anatomy and jazz class, then back to, your ELA or your English class. And the arts are just so important. When we talked about SEL being part of the normal day, you're not just sitting down talking about a curriculum. SEL can be targeted through the arts. If you think about having a rough day, you want to be near music usually, right? The arts provides an outlet for all of us, children and adults. And when you have access to the arts, you're just more of a holistic person. But here in Rochester, we have a tale of two cities. So in Rochester, we have Garth Fagan, who is a world-renowned choreographer who does a choreography for The Lion King on Broadway.
Wow. Okay. We
have this beautiful, prestigious music school, Eastman School of Music. We have Jiva theaters, and we have really rich art here in Rochester of all forms. Right. However, people who live down the street, maybe 2 or 3 minutes in the inner city, don't often have access to the arts. When I think about my daughter, she does dance, cheer, pageants, modeling, tumbling. That's all my money.
Wow.
And she has the privilege, because I'm her mom, she has the privilege of having those extracurriculars. Right. But the arts are not just for the wealthy. The arts are not for the elite. The arts are for everyone. Right. And especially living so close, we're excited to have the arts be a part of our day, integrated in our day. So our girls can have a holistic approach to education and to provide access that some may not have.
What grades are you guys targeting initially?
So we are open with kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and we'll grow a grade each year until we are K through 6th grade.
Oh, cool. All right. So this will just be kind of the pilot for the K to 2 that you're starting here, and then we'll just keep moving up as we go along.
We follow a slow growth model.
I'm so curious to see, based on what you were just saying, how the kids have, the arts integrated in the day and all, and social emotional learning, how your numbers are going to look in terms of the academics. If they have those things where they can integrate it during the day, and like you said, we all need that break, as opposed to public school where it's just sit here and we're going to teach you from 8 to 3 and that's it. You might get gym and you may have recess. Right. So to see how all of that working together would kind of affect them in terms of their grades would be a wonderful thing to see. So you definitely got to come back and tell us about that.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes. We'll have a great report for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So walk me, I know you kind of did there, but I'm going to throw this out to Lindsay. Can you walk me through a typical day at Innova if, I'm going to bring my daughter there? And, what's a typical day is going to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing to know is that we will be doing an extended school day. Okay. So our exact timing is not set in stone yet because we need to figure out our school bus schedule that we'll have access to. But ideally, students will be with us from about 7:45 till about 4 each day. That extended school day allows us to do a lot of this integration that we're talking about. And we're also working with parents to try to align our school day a little bit better with their working schedules. We know that before and after school care can be costly and can be very complicated to coordinate. So we're looking to work with parents to say, how can we make sure that we could be sort of a one-stop shop when it comes to you drop your daughter off, you know that she's safe for the day, you go to work, you can focus on work, and then at the end of the day, you can pick her up or she goes home on the school bus and you can feel confident that she's going to get home safely. So that's just one piece of the puzzle there. Throughout the school day, the idea is to have as many hands-on learning experience as possible. When we think about our STEAM-based education, we're thinking about problem solving. How do you learn problem solving? You have to get the chance to solve problems, right? And so thinking about putting as many of these real life challenges in front of our girls and saying, here's a bunch of different skills. What skills can you use to tackle this problem? Whether it's looking at water quality in our community and then saying, hey, to our 5th graders, can you develop a filtration system to clean this water? Or if it's looking and saying, there's a problem where families are living in situations where they can't be able to advocate for themselves with their landlords. Well, how can we talk about building arguments in literacy class? And how can you use your voice to advocate for yourself? All of these different ways to help our girls feel engaged and connected to what they're learning. You can't learn in a vacuum free from the world. The world you're interacting with when you leave our school. And so our school should be preparing you to interact with that world as well.
Do you guys feel like because it's all girls, well, I mean, you know better than I do. I mean, you guys are in the business. Do you guys feel that all girls schools and all boys schools, like the kids are more focused when they're isolated?
There is a lot of research out there that looks at single gender education. Interestingly, if you look at academic performance, girls who attend all girls schools do better than their peers who are in a co-education setting. Interestingly, the same is not true all the time for young men. Young men actually sometimes, and this is not true for every school, but statistically speaking, the research shows boys are actually doing better in co-educated settings. So when I see that, I'm thinking, wow, are we putting our girls in co-educated settings just because the boys need them there? Like, is that why we're doing this? Right? That's not fair to the girls.
I was thinking you could put them in an all boys school. They're going to find some girls somewhere.
Right. True. So the research does demonstrate that girls are doing better. Now, why is that? I think there's a lot that goes into it. Recently, I heard this idea that boys are socially conditioned to be brave and girls are socially conditioned to be perfect. What does that mean when it comes to education? Well, it means that our little perfectionists, they're not willing to take academic risks. And to do well and to learn well in school, you do have to be willing to take an academic risk, right? You're not going to be perfect when you're learning something brand new. So I think that in a society where we're developing little perfectionists, yeah, maybe we can sit pretty, maybe we can smile nicely, but if we're not willing to take a risk, then you don't swing big and end up in the boardroom. You don't swing big and end up as the CEO of a startup, right? Those are risky positions to have. And so I do think that that's one reason why the all girls setting helps. It breaks down some of those stereotypes and it says that you can do math. If all the people in the room around you are girls doing math, you can't say that girls are bad at math. Somebody in the room is doing a good job. And it breaks away at those stereotypes. We're hoping that by starting with our kindergarten girls, with our 4 and our 5-year-olds, we can get to them before those stereotypes even start to build.
Yeah, stop it before it starts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So do we see, ladies, somewhere down the line, there might be an Innova Boys Academy or something? You got to even this thing out.
She already
Brittany,
told you.
laughing.
She already told you she's crossing one bridge at a time.
One bridge at a time.
One bridge at a time.
One bridge at a time. But I mean, you still gotta think about that bridge before you construct it. So I mean,
It's true.
you know.
It is true. And we do see that here in Rochester, there are more all boys options than there are all girls options. So that's why we started with the girls first.
Right.
We will be the only all girls elementary school here in Rochester. There's not currently an all boys elementary school, but there are a few options for all boys in the middle school and high school range. There's just one all girls charter school in the middle high school range here and one all girls private school in the middle high school range. So we felt like this elementary landscape and all girls was a big void, and we wanted to basically find a solution for that by starting the school.
What was the community engagement like? Do you have a lot of support from the community? Which of course you got the charter, you do, but what was that like?
Lots and lots of conversations with parents, and my favorite are the children. Because if you ask children what they think, they will tell you. Just be ready to hear it. So my favorite conversations were with the children, and you just talk to them about if you were starting a school, what would it look like? Like what's the best part of your day? What would you change about your school? And truly take that into consideration. And when we were in the development stage, lots and lots. So yes, we do have community, lots of community support, which is like overwhelming. And I'll say that we have entered our season of recruitment. Yeah. So student recruitment and staff recruitment. And that support is evident there as well. The children are enrolling into our lottery, putting their application in, and it's flowing in. So we're really excited about that, as are staff members who would like to join us. So that community support is just continued. Today, I was at a speaking engagement earlier for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I was sitting next to our former mayor. And he was just telling us just how much he is so proud of us and supportive of our school. And so I was telling when I came home, I was telling my sister, I went to that event today to pour into the youth, and the elders were pouring into me. And so that's what true community is.
How many kids are you guys expecting this semester? Or?
When we open in August, we hope to have 104 students. So that would be 52 kindergartners, 26 first graders, and 26 second graders. And as Brittany mentioned, it is a charter lottery process. So that's true for all charter schools in Rochester. Right now, families can submit an application online. It's super easy. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to complete. You just put in your name, your address, your child's name, their birthday, and honestly, that's about it. And then they can be entered into this lottery. The lottery will take place on April 11th. And at that point in time, any family that gets drawn from our lottery to have one of those seats that I just was talking about, those families will then have the opportunity to enroll, where there's a bit more paperwork, but your typical starting your child in a school, access to a bit more information at that point. But again, really will be streamlined. And one thing that we're excited about is the fact that we're partnering with the Girl Scouts. So all the girls who go through our enrollment process, they'll also have the opportunity to go to a 5 to 6 week long summer camp. That would only cost them, I believe it's $25 for all 5 weeks together. So being able to enroll at our school, but then spend the summer meeting their future classmates and starting to build the community, getting to know the Girl Scouts, all of that we're just really, really excited about and excited to engage families in that process.
Okay. Wonderful. Listen, I am not from Rochester. I will tell you this. I really, really commend you ladies both for what you're doing. This is a very big step. And I really hope that the Monroe County that you're doing it, Monroe County community really appreciates. Listen, Monroe, y'all need to appreciate what they're doing, because this is good.
I was going to say, how does somebody support you guys right now?
Right now, it's honestly about spreading the word. We want to make sure that as many people know about our school as is possible. And the reason for that really comes for us down to equity. We want to make sure that anybody who wants the chance to enroll their child gets the chance to enroll their child. Mm-hmm. And that's going to happen by word of mouth, by telling your neighbors, telling your friends, telling your sister, telling whomever about the opportunity, and then sending them to innovagirlsacademy.org to check us out and to be able to sign up there.
All right, excellent.
So a good selling point is that lunch, man. Gotta make sure that lunch is right.
Make sure
lunch is included, breakfast is included, snacks included, transportation, uniform. We want you to be able to enroll your child and not have to worry about anything else.
No vegetables. So that at all.
No vegetables. I don't see that happening. There will be vegetables on that plate, right, ladies?
There will be some vegetables.
There'll be tasty vegetables. We'll make the vegetables taste good.
Ice cream Fridays. How about that?
That's right. That's right.
Hey, listen, before I let you go, I have to ask you just this one last question. What is it about education that you could change right now? I know you mentioned teacher burnout. We mentioned things about COVID with the kids and all. And I know you're doing your part by opening this wonderful academy. So what is the one thing that you could change about education, if you could?
That is a good question. I'm glad you saved it for last.
The parents.
I believe. So if there's one, yes. If there's one thing I would change about education, it would be
Did I put you on the spot there, Brittany?
No.
All right,
yes,
okay.
But I'm trying not to cheat. But this is my real answer.
Okay.
You said one thing, but I would have us look at and change the whole system of American education.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because, and here's why. If we think about the way of American education, this whole system of it, I think we need to just take a step back and make sure it's meeting the needs of our students. There's no way that a student who, let's say, went to the school that I went to 20 years ago should be learning the same thing in the same manner.
So we get it. Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. In many of our schools, unfortunately, are preparing students to meet the needs of a world that doesn't exist anymore. Education should be ever evolving. I wish that all schools have that autonomy to shift and maneuver to make sure that what they're doing truly meets the needs of their students and are preparing them to meet the needs of a world that we don't even know what's going to be there.
Right.
But for sure, if we're doing the same exact things the same exact way, it's not working. And you're still teaching the things that I learned 20 years ago. You're truly, you're making sure that our students aren't prepared for the world to come and aren't inspiring them to create the world that they had the way they see it.
Lindsay, what is your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree with Brittany. The pace of technology, the pace of the world, the pace of assessments, everything has outpaced the change that's happening in traditional education right now. And we have to catch up. I think that one way we do that is by looking at how can we better individualize instruction for the students that are in our seats.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go to a doctor's office and expect that one doctor is going to fix a room of 30 people staring at them. Mm-hmm. We need to think about what systems can we put in place that would allow a teacher to better individualize their instruction for the kids that are in that room. Mm-hmm. That might be utilizing different technology platforms that can adjust to the level of the child and provide specific instruction based on the level of the child. It might mean having stronger parent-family relationships so that each teacher better understands what that child is bringing in the door with them. It might mean giving teachers more time in their days to look at data to really understand where their children are at. I think there's lots of different ways to approach it, but I think generally, the more we can individualize the instruction, the better results that we're going to see, and the better our students are going to feel about themselves as learners, because they're going to understand that they each bring their own gifts into the classroom and they have their own things that they can work on. And by doing by working on both, by lifting them up and by saying, here's the things that you can work on, they're going to leave as more confident learners, which is overall going to lift our educational system and help our students feel better about going to school every day.
You guys are great.
Yeah, I can hear the passion in both of your voices.
So you sold me on it. I just don't got no young kids no more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, mine's are grown now. So, but yeah, you guys are great, man.
The passion in your voice
Thank
for what you both are doing. And with that being said, again, www.innovagirlsacademy.org. That's where you can go to get more information on this. They are putting names in the lottery for enrollment in August. Hope the doors are full to the rim. Like we just have it all in, So we really appreciate you, ladies. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
All right. And with that being said, like you said, if we had small kids, it would make sense, to send them in a place like this. So you got to expand. Expansion is where it's at. Lindsay,
you can take my grown kids if you want. I'll send them
Lindsay,
over
you got to build a bridge while you're there, okay? All right, the Only One Mic podcast is available on all major platforms that you stream your podcasts on. Also, check out our Only One Mic podcast YouTube channel to catch up on the past and current episodes. Please don't forget to rate the show and subscribe. And also, if you'd like to get in contact with us, you can reach us via Instagram and Twitter at The Only One Mic P1, Facebook and LinkedIn at The Only One Mic Podcast, and email us at theonlyonemike00@gmail.com. There you can leave your comments. Thank you once again for your time, ladies. Brittany, Lindsay, best of the best from Monroe County. We thank you again for your time and encourage you to please speak your truth quietly and clearly and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant, because they too have their story to tell. So until next time, please keep in mind that we never had to run from the Ku Klux Klan, so we shouldn't have to run from a black man. Peace.